It was sunset. The sun was already setting towards the horizon. The carriage made its way through the winding roads leading to the ancient castle. Mabel was sitting inside the cabin, and her little son slept on her lap. The boy's blue eyes were closed. He was seeing sweet childhood dreams. The girl's heart was beating excitedly, because the outcome of this trip seemed useless to her. She knew that returning home was not only an excuse to visit her mother, it was also an opportunity to confront her past. Looking ahead through the dark windows of the carriage, the heroine asked the coachman to go faster. She was willing to pay him more for this trip. And he, clutching the reins in his hands, only nodded in response, as if feeling the heaviness in her heart. Arriving at the place, Mabel knocked on the castle door. The man who replaced the butler appeared before her. His gaze was restrained, but inside him the heroine caught a note of sympathy. He, surprised, let the girl inside. Walking through the corridors, Mabel entered the room where relatives had already gathered to spend the last hours of her life with her mother. There was a quiet tension all around. It was not easy for those present to accept future events. The heroine, despite her determination, felt that it was difficult to be here. She was frightened by a meeting with the past. The woman's face was tormented by illness, but when she saw her daughter, a light of joy lit up in her eyes. Mabel looked at her with love and sorrow, realizing that time could not be turned back. Her brother stood next to the bed. The guy's face expressed both surprise and accusation. The silent question of where his sister had been seemed to lie on his lips. The grandmother smiled, looking at the little boy. She saw her daughter reflected in him, and she unmistakably realized that it was her grandson. The woman whispered the words of motherly love to her daughter, like the last message before leaving for another world. And Mabel, peering into the faces of her loved ones, felt that this return was perhaps not as useless as she thought. Death came quietly and inevitably, shrouding the room in sorrow. The blonde squeezed her mother's hand, as if it could bring her back to life. She felt death approaching every second until it finally arrived. Tears flowed down the cheeks of the relatives. Mabel's brother's face expressed a mixture of grief and accusation. There was a strong pain inside her that now gave no rest. For everyone present, the woman's death was a loss, an irreparable emptiness. After saying goodbye to the deceased, everyone gathered for dinner. Relatives began asking Mabel where she had been all this time. Their surprise turned into a series of questions. It seemed that those around her saw in the heroine a ghost from the past. The girl was silent, feeling the pressure of their gazes. Every word was like a blow to her heart. Mabel expressed words of sympathy for her brother. She understood that his pain was no less than her own. The girl thought that it was time to leave as soon as possible, so as not to see or feel this torment anymore. But her brother stood in her way like a wall, not allowing her to leave. The deep night outside the window indicated that the path was unknown and dangerous. The guy suggested that his sister wait until the morning. He was worried about her and did not want her to disappear from their lives again. At a time when it was already deep night, a man suddenly burst into the house. His arrival was accompanied by noise and indignant cries of the servant, who tried to stop the uninvited guest. However, Duke Quintrell was restless. His will was only one goal: to get to Mabel. Seeing him, the girl was scared. The man's appearance awakened in her old fears and pains that she had tried in vain to forget. The Duke's eyes radiated determination and a certain secret joy. He was glad that he had finally found her, his future wife, his bride. However, Mabel's words dashed his hopes. Her phrase, "I am no longer your bride," sounded like a sentence to him. The Duke felt his heart squeezing in his chest, but he did not give up. His gaze reflected all the pain that he had experienced in the past years. He realized that he would not leave the girl so easily, and would not leave until he won her heart again. Mabel Robbins was the eldest and only daughter of the Marquis Robbie. 6 years ago, her engagement was the most discussed topic in the entire state, but she did not pay much attention to either the rumors or her future husband, Demore. He was the successor of an influential person in the state, Freeman. Her family was looking for a worthy husband for their daughter. The newlyweds had a future full of blessings and warm words of love. However, the girl realized that she did not have feelings for her groom, but wanted to spend her life next to her loved one. And everything that happened was a lie. So she came up with something. Soon an accident occurred, but the girl's body was never found. Everyone was looking for Mabel, but no one knew where she had gone. 3 years passed like this. According to the law of the kingdom, the missing person was declared dead, and the engagement of these two was broken off. The guest, the Duc de Moore, looked at Mabel with mixed feelings, excitement and curiosity, Doubt and bewilderment were inside the hero. The guy spoke in words that the girl heard but rejected in her mind. Peering into her eyes, he whispered that she had fooled everyone around her finger. The blonde, standing in front of the hero, felt how the past suddenly came to life in her memory. The groom recalled that the engagement was called off 2 years ago. Everyone thought that the Marquise's daughter had died in the accident, but it doesn't matter anymore. The Duke decided not to give up and to be persistent. He wanted to know why his beloved disappeared, and why she returned only now. Taking a step towards her, he decided to gently kiss her hair. Mabel stepped back, resisting his approach. There was no reason for her to let him touch her like that. After that, the lady's gaze switched to the boy. He stood behind her. The girl felt her heart clench with love and horror. The boy, Patrick, stood there, beaming with beauty and innocence. His hair was luxurious and light, like the rays of the sun. His blue eyes with emerald pupils seemed incredibly luminous. The Duke asked whose child it was and realized the truth. It was their common child. Tiny Patrick was a living testimony to their past love and separation. Mabel's brother intervened, standing up for his sister. He politely but persistently asked the groom to leave the room. The guy explained to the guest that his sister was tired and needed peace. The groom apologized for his intrusion and insisted on staying. He expressed his condolences over the woman's death and admitted his fears that his loved one would run away again. Mabel's brother, although he accepted with condolences, did not agree to the guest's lodging for the night. However, the Duke did not give up. Meanwhile, the girl inside was full of anxiety and fear. She didn't want the guest to stay. The heroine felt protected when the guy was not around. She saw him as a threat that could destroy her fragile heart. The Duke stopped, his gaze becoming determined. The groom decided not to let the girl run away again for fear of losing her. The guy's feelings were mixed. The fear of missing his beloved again and the joy that he had found her. After all, the search time was a living hell for him. Now he felt that if he and his beloved were together, they would be able to overcome any challenge. All that remained was to explain to the girl. Mabel went to her room and lay down on her bed. But sleep did not come to her. Doubts and fears raged in her soul. The fugitive felt that she was confused and did not know what to do next. She realized that if nothing changed, she could remain a prisoner of her past. She needs to find the strength to free herself. Scenes from 5 years ago surfaced in the girl's memories. Then the groom, whose face she tried to forget, tried to kill her. These memories enveloped Mabel's thoughts, haunting her even at night. The would-be bride understood that she now had a son, Patrick, and she has a responsibility to protect him, even if it means running away. She came to this castle with only one purpose, to see her mother. But now it was important to remember about your own and the child's safety. The girl agreed in advance with the coachman about the possible departure back if the situation required it. She decided to do so. Gradually, the first signs of dawn began to appear in the sky. The carriage with the fugitives suddenly turned around and began to go in the opposite direction. Mabel wondered why they didn't move on. However, the coachman announced that it was just the passenger's imagination. The heroine remembered the face of the guy she was so afraid of, and her heart sank with fear. She really didn't want to go back. The carriage that seemed to be leaving the estate suddenly returned. Mabel went out to find out the reason. The groom was waiting for her in the coachman's place. He insisted that he was not going to let his beloved go. The heroine was surprised. She did not see the real driver. But the guy explained that he was safe. The guy invited the fugitive to a conversation and took her aside. This conversation became a kind of exploration of their future relationship. Mabel was afraid to refuse, fearing that her interlocutor would forbid her to leave the estate. However, he loved her and could not allow such behavior. The ex-fiancé could not understand why the brunette behaved this way. After all, their engagement was broken off long ago. The guy asked if she still loved him. Mabel stood in front of him as if in a stupor. She didn't know what to answer. Doubts thundered in her soul and she felt weak. The heroine stated that she no longer feels anything for her interlocutor. Her voice sounded barely audible. The guy looked at her sadly, as if his heart had broken into pieces. He didn't believe her and didn't want to believe her. Such truth didn't suit him. Mabel's hands were shaking. Her heart was squeezing with pain and fear. She felt that something was still fluctuating inside, but she couldn't determine what exactly. The guy realized that she still had feelings, but she was afraid of something that she herself could not understand. Losing his beloved again for the Duke was the same as dying. The guy came closer to the girl, trying to squeeze her hand in his. He wanted to say words of love, but something stopped him. Both had mixed feelings. The guy's love and fear, Mabel's mistrust and fear. They stood there, separated by misunderstanding. Both felt the pain of losing love, which may never return. For the girl, meeting a guy seemed like a big mistake. But the guy assured her that he would never leave her. The heroine asked first to attend her mother's funeral, and later they could get together and discuss everything. The guy agreed. As they headed back to the mansion, the beauty of the dawn unfolded before them. Nature woke up, surrounding them with its grandeur. The mansion appeared before them in all its splendor. At that moment, the sun was already fully illuminating it. It was a beautiful morning. At the door of the house, the girl was met by her brother. He was glad that she returned, as he was worried about her. The sister expressed a desire to change clothes. It was necessary to wear a morning dress to be ready for the funeral. They postponed the conversation until later. The blonde invited the girl to stay with him so that they would have time to discuss everything. After all, they haven't seen each other for so long. In the cold morning air, the heroine and her brother were having a pleasant conversation. Feeling cool, they discussed past and future events. The interlocutors found solace in each other's warmth and support. The girl decided to wake up her son, remembering that she had left him alone. Reflecting during the conversation, it seemed to her that even death would be a blessing. For 5 years she lived in constant fear. I had to constantly hide from danger. When she returned to her son, she discovered that he was no longer in the carriage. He was being held in the arms of her fiancé. The heroine got scared when she realized that her son was left alone, so she ran to him. The guy took the child in his arms. The brunette thought that the child would be scared if he didn't see his mother nearby. The girl's brother was surprised why her sister left her son unattended. The returning fugitive took her son into her arms. She also expressed her desire for the funeral to take place with family. The ex-fiancé asked the Duke to leave, and he agreed. The hero realized that he would have to endure just one day without his beloved. The look of the boy saying goodbye to him remained in his memory. The boy looked at him in awe, as if he understood that it was his father. There was also love in that look. His beauty was amazing, blue eyes filled with purity and bright curls that fluttered in the wind. It was difficult for the father to restrain himself when he met his son's gaze. It was a look full of trust and love that pierced his heart. The guy waved his hand to the child as if promising to return. The hero was full of hope and determination after his conversation with the bride. The day of the funeral arrived. The estate was filled with quiet sobs and heavy sighs. People stood near the grave, surrounded by flowers. The grief was palpable in every look and every movement of those present. The girl watched this picture from the window. Her heart was heavy with sadness and helplessness. Sitting on the bed in her mother's room, she felt tears appearing on her face. Her son was sitting next to her. His presence was the only source of comfort. And images of my ex-groom popped up in my thoughts. The one who said he still loved her. She remembered how he held their son in his arms. It filled her heart with mixed feelings. Love, doubt, and fear. The son worriedly asked his mother what happened to her and why she was sad. Mabel smiled, assuring her that everything was fine. And then she hugged her son tightly. The joyful boy suggested going for a walk outside. The girl was worried that the boy's appearance might surprise the guests at the funeral. Therefore, she invited him to stay in the room. However, the son insisted on a walk in the fresh air. At this time, guests who had come to the funeral entered the house. It was her brother and Christina. The guy noticed that his sister might need help. He offered his support, and she agreed. The girl and Christina exchanged glances. At that moment, the room resounded with joy from their meeting. Then the girl's younger sister, Marie, entered the room. The sisters immediately hugged. The youngest of them asked where she had been all this time. In response, the older sister invited them to sit down and talk. The girl's brother, smiling at his nephew, offered him a carrot cake to eat. The eyes of everyone gathered focused on the boy, waiting for his answer. And the boy said that he doesn't like carrots. There was a sudden moment of tension in the room. This unexpected remark revealed the secret that the girl was trying to hide. Shades of anxiety and embarrassment flashed in her eyes. After all, the Duke was not a fan of carrots either. This coincidence could not be accidental. A beautiful sunset set in against the backdrop of the awkward situation. It painted the surrounding objects in warm shades and filled the room with pleasant light. The younger sister asked the girl how she spent all these years. The whole family was also interested in her health and financial situation. The girl said that she had a cold several times. She admitted that the only thing she was good at was sewing. She made a living by selling her clothes and lace. This greatly surprised the family. They were perplexed how she could take care of the child and work at the same time. The girl said that many people helped her. Christina decided to ask the girl if Patrick was really the son of the Duke. This question took the girl by surprise. The heroine felt confused. She had to agree with this. The blonde admitted that the boy will turn 4 this year. Relatives gathered around began asking the girl questions. For example, about her decision not to marry the Duke. Also about raising a child alone after leaving. Their surprise increased when they realized who the blue-eyed boy's father was. Christina's face expressed mixed feelings. Surprise, some concern, perhaps even bewilderment. The fugitive experienced complex emotions when she told the truth about her son. She felt embarrassed and a little sad about it. She didn't like that her personal life became the subject of discussion. Although it was a pity that the secret became known to everyone, the girl did not want to give any more explanations. Moreover, she said that she does not plan to marry the Duke. This statement caused great surprise, especially among her brother. The heroine explained that she prefers to raise her son in a calm and secluded place, without being married. In her mind, this decision was the best for everyone, and all because no one from outside the family will approach her son. The relatives were having a conversation at the table on which stood a candlestick. Its warm light softly illuminated the room, and next to him stood a lonely glass. The heroes continued to discuss past events. For example, they talked about how hard the Duke felt about the girl's absence when she disappeared. Mabel's brother didn't understand why she had to leave again without giving any explanation. This sister's decision was extremely incomprehensible to him. The girl explained that she was not going to leave right now. The younger sister expressed relief, saying that the main thing was that Mabel was alive and well. Relatives in the room expressed their worries about the girl's future departure. After all the time the heroine was absent, they missed her. The younger sister mentioned that their mother and brother especially missed the girl. The brother was amazed that the heroine was able to work while raising her son alone. He thought it was very difficult. The guy expressed a desire to help his sister. The girl was the eldest daughter of the family, and her brother could not let her go so easily again. At this time, a servant entered the room. He reported the news, which attracted the attention of everyone present. He announced that the Duc d'Amour had arrived. Now the guest wanted to talk to the girl's brother alone. Face to face, the guy had a question. Why should the conversation be with him and not with the girl? The guy, hearing this, thought that something serious had happened. He asked the servant to tell him that he would come down soon. The girl's brother approached the guest, ready to listen to him. The guy told the owner of the house about his love for his ex-fiancé. He said his memories and feelings were still strong. The brother agreed that it was possible. After all, they were also friends before. Despite the fact that many years have passed since the accident, the guy expressed sincere understanding of the hero's feelings. The groom understood that his presence could be unpleasant for the girl. And now it was also a day of grief and sorrow. It seemed to the guy that his support might be needed that day. But at the same time, he felt some awkwardness in front of the bride. He had mixed feelings. On the one hand, he wanted to be there, support her and help. On the other hand, he understood that her feelings for him probably would not remain the same. For the guest, the owner of the house was like a younger brother. He deeply valued their friendship. However, realizing that his ex-fiancé did not want to see him here, he felt disappointed at her rejection. The girl's brother saw her difficult emotional state. He expressed his support and understanding of his dear sister's feelings. He understood that it was a difficult day for the fugitive, and tried to be there to help her get through this moment. The guest decided to explain to the ex-fiancé's brother the true reason for their meeting. He stated his desire to renew his engagement to the girl. However, his brother rejected his offer. He believed that his sister should decide for herself who to be with. The hero decided not to interfere in the situation. The guest continued to insist on renewing his engagement to his ex-fiancé. His words sounded with extraordinary confidence. He expressed a sincere desire to take the next step. The guy seemed to have been thinking about legitimizing their relationship for a long time and seriously. Surprise instantly gripped the girl's brother. This sudden turn of events left him thinking about many questions. He understood that this was expected. The blonde remembered the efforts of the groom in finding the missing bride. But still, the guy seemed to be shackled by surprise. The brevity of the sister's acquaintance with the groom previously worried the hero. He felt that such a quick move might be too hasty. However, he previously supported the wedding. The brother believed that the relationship between the young people could be strengthened if they were given more time. He decided to agree to everything so that they could get to know each other better, and later build a strong, happy family. The groom continued to convince the bride's brother. It emphasized his sanity and prudence. He also expressed confidence that the owner of the house will support them in their decision to start a family, as unshakable as the groom himself. After all, the girl's future together with the brunette will certainly bring them good and happiness. He asked the guy to step into his position and support him. In addition, he reminded of the girl's child. The boy, in his opinion, deserved a full and happy family, and the hero considered himself his father. The brother, with bitterness in his voice, asked the guy for forgiveness. However, he was right. No one could force his sister to marry if she did not want it herself. However, the ex-fiancé insisted that the girl's feelings for him had not dried up. It was a reminder of the time they spent together, about how they recognized each other and believed that these experiences remained alive to this day. Moreover, he considered their feelings not one-sided. The brother did not want his sister to marry the Duke again. His opinion this time was as categorical as the girl's. In the past, he considered this marriage successful. Now the hero could not allow his sister to take this step again. The brother remembered how the groom made every effort to find his missing sister when she disappeared. He didn't stop even when she was declared dead. The guy continued to hope and look for his beloved. It showed how much he loved her, and his brother knew it well. But despite all this, he believed that the decision rested with the sister herself. Her brother did not want to interfere in her personal life. The groom insisted on understanding the reason for the refusal. The guy could only repeat that he had no right to decide for his sister. However, he also clarified why the Duke avoided a personal conversation with the girl. This conversation seemed difficult for the ex-fiancé. The guest seemed to understand the essence of his words and their significance. They needed to be carefully considered. Now, while there are no strangers, was the best time for this. The guest apologized for the disturbance at such a late hour. He also expressed his gratitude for the wonderful dinner. The Duke understood that the funeral had caused a lot of trouble for the owners, and wished them a good rest. The owner of the house also wished him good night. The guest left the house, passing along the corridor. Moonlight penetrated through the windows, filling the room with its light. The ex-fiancé had mixed feelings. It was both a disappointment and a relief from some of the clarity these conversations brought. Walking along the corridor, he met a girl. It looks like she didn't expect him to show up. She walked around thinking the guest was in the guest room, and the guy was just heading towards this place at that time. He decided to joke about how time had accidentally brought them together. But for the girl, it was just a coincidence. She was categorical in her attitude towards the groom, and did not want to have anything to do with him. The hero decided to find out why the girl suddenly said that, and why he refuses to explain the reason for his refusal. He felt that he should know the answer to this question. However, there was no answer. The girl's surprise at such a question was understandable. She believed that the Duke probably knew the answer to his question. The blonde did not want to continue the conversation and asked the guest to leave. The guy asked permission to look at his son before leaving. However, the boy was already asleep according to his mother. Suddenly, the girl heard footsteps. The kid went down the stairs, cheerfully greeting his uncle. The boy asked why his uncle was here. The guy replied that he just wanted to see him. Christina approached the stairs and began to observe the situation. Mabel approached her son to take him into her arms. She asked the boy why he was not in bed since it was already midnight. The child heard his mother's explanation that his uncle was about to leave. Therefore, the girl asked her son to return to the room. The father looked at the boy, following him with his eyes. The heroine, holding her son by the hand, led him back to the room. Christina walked down the stairs with a slight smile. When she saw the guest, her eyes sparkled with interest. She suggested having an important conversation. This unexpected turn of events left the guest feeling a little confused. But he agreed to the conversation with curiosity. With a smile on her face, Christina suggested continuing the conversation near the children's room. She explained that although Patrick is usually obedient, his mother may need help. The guest agreed with the hostess's statement. As they walked towards the children's room, Patrick's mother watched this conversation. There was something similar to anxiety and hope in her eyes. The girl's heart beat faster in anticipation of how the conversation would end, and also from thoughts about the future of my son. In the room, Patrick asked his mother who this uncle was. His mother looked at him with tenderness and love, afraid to give an answer. She replied that this was the Duke, the owner of the city. Patrick was interested, and his eyes lit up with joy when he talked about the uncle he liked. At the same time, his mother experienced mixed feelings of joy and anxiety. After all, these will be the boy's first memories of his father. As she walked her son to bed, the girl told him about the dragon. He, according to his mother, wandered around the palace at night and scared those who were not yet sleeping. The boy agreed to go to bed. His mother led him into the room and lay down next to him. The child asked his mother's opinion about their new friend. Her gaze was filled with mixed feelings. The heroine understood that the boy and the Duke were related. This meant that their relationship could become closer. However, she could not suppress the feeling of hatred towards the Duke for what happened in the past. The child quickly fell asleep. But sleep did not come to the girl for a long time. She pondered the words of her child. Fear seeped into her thoughts. She remembered that the Duke could become a source of pain and suffering. That's why she rejected his marriage proposal. After all, the Duke may have been the one who tried to kill her. Memories of the past suddenly took possession of the heroine. This happened 5 years ago when she went in a carriage to visit the Duke. The coachman was surprised at her haste because the road was coming to an end. The bride initially hid the truth from her new acquaintance. She said that she could not tell the coachman about this secret. But then she admitted that she was pregnant with the Duke's child. The girl was full of hope that the groom would be happy. The carriage suddenly stopped before reaching its destination. The heroine's new acquaintance came out to find out what was happening around. But at that moment, an arrow hit the coachman. She mortally wounded the guy. In a panic, not understanding what was happening, she heard the coachman screaming. She heard a voice begging her to run. The girl could not understand what was happening. She wondered why someone decided to kill her. Deciding to get out of the carriage, she saw a terrible sight. A man in a black cloak stood on the street with a sword in his hands. There were a lot of dead people around. The killer asked her to reconcile. He claimed that no one could help her. The heroine's heart beat with incredible force. Fear and bewilderment prevented her from understanding what was happening. She decided to find out why this man so mercilessly kills everyone in his path. The man in the black cloak calmly said that he was simply following orders. He is indifferent to the lives he takes. The girl decided to find out who sent him here to do such a terrible thing. For her, it was absolutely crazy and incomprehensible. She called for help again and again. The heroine also offered to pay him any price just to be saved, even many times more than the price for murder. Nothing else mattered except her desire to survive, especially given her pregnancy. The killer rejected her offer. He said that he should stop thinking about running away to that person. The girl looked at him with a questioning look. Her eyes were full of worry. The stranger continued talking, mentioning Demore. Milady's heart beat wildly at these words. The blonde realized that only her fiancé and family knew about the return. She tried to find the answer to the question of who could want her death, and who ordered her to be killed. The heroine sat deep in thought. Despite the confident pronunciation of the words, she did not believe the killer. Mabel felt that this was a blatant lie. She turned over the faces in her mind, trying to identify which of them could have a motive for such madness. The killer hinted that her fiancé might have known about her route. All ideas about his love for the heroine began to seem like a blatant lie. Her soul was torn between the desire to believe him and desperate hope. She winced when the killer mentioned her pregnancy. The situation became even grimmer. She felt her nerves stretched to the limit. After all, the killer has to make his choice. Decide to take her life now, or allow her to return to her groom so that the heroine will die in his arms. The stranger said that if the girl was ready for the second option, she should run away, as far as possible and as quickly as possible. The girl rushed forward, trying to get away from danger. After some time, she felt that safety had returned to her. No one else was chasing her. The heroine wondered about the questions swirling in her head. For example, how could this happen? The Duke promised to protect and love her, but for some reason everything turned out differently. She decided not to trust the stranger's words so easily. An unknown person claimed that the Duke had sent him. The blonde began to wonder why he needed this. He is the heir of a rich and illustrious family. At first glance, the guy had no reason to kill her. This situation left Mabel with many questions to which she did not know the answer. The sun's rays began to penetrate through the windows. The girl woke up and got out of bed. She felt tenderness in her heart, looking at her sleeping son. The heroine gently ran her hand through his hair, admiring his quiet sleep. Then she went out into the corridor and met Christina. The young mother greeted her with a smile. The girl greeted Christina in the corridor with a warm greeting. Her heart was filled with a pleasant feeling at the sight of a familiar face. The fugitive expressed a desire to find out where her brother was. Christina said that it was better for the girl to stay in the mansion. She assured that she would be safe here, and her family will always support her. The girl said grateful words to Christina. Then, walking along the corridor, she headed to her brother in the library. Having met him, she guessed about the upcoming conversation. The brother suggested postponing it for the evening, explaining that he had an important meeting. They agreed to discuss issues related to her decision to leave the mansion that evening. The girl expressed gratitude to her brother for his understanding, and also for your support. The guy realized that this decision was connected with her feelings for Patrick. The heroine said that she decided to stay. The brother greeted this news with surprise and joy in his eyes. He did not expect such a decision. It turns out Chris was right. The mansion was Mabel's safest refuge. After all, she understood that she did not know what the killer wanted. But the girl was sure that if the killer found out that she was alive, he might try to kill her again. Therefore, she understood the need for protection, even if you stay just a few days to avoid mortal danger. The brother was deeply relieved by what he heard. Before that, he thought that half his life would not be enough to convince his sister to stay. She sincerely apologized for the concern she had caused. But my brother had to go to a meeting so as not to be late. After all, the meeting is important and it will not be rescheduled if he is late. He went to the mansion. The magnificent palace was enveloped in an atmosphere of luxury and history. It seemed that its high walls were visible from all corners of the city. In the corner of the first room there was an armchair that looked extremely elegant. Graceful patterns completely filled all its wooden parts. Marquis Robbie attended the ongoing meeting, unable to stay away from what was happening. The girl's brother stood next to the Duke. The brunette thought about his bride, and how this blonde guy in a suit reminded her. Their presence did not go unnoticed by others. The Marquis wondered why everyone had gathered here near him and what they were doing. When meeting a new guest, the Duke greeted him with a smile. The guy, a little taken aback by the Duke's attention, greeted him. He reported that the child was doing well. At this time, the Queen entered the hall, and her appearance seemed to illuminate the room. Her long, wavy hair sparkled in the light of the chandeliers. Blonde strands framed her graceful face, emphasizing her aristocratic features. Her eyes were blue like the clear sky, sparkling, attracting the gaze of everyone present. They seemed to leave no one indifferent. A crown glittered on her head. She was decorated with precious stones, as if symbolizing her greatness and power. The Queen moved with effortless grace like the protagonist of a fairy tale. It was as if she was inviting everyone to enjoy her presence. Her gaze was full of grace and power. The beauty asked Robbie if he managed to rest in such a short time. The guy, with gratitude in his voice, assured her that he had time to rest. He was grateful for such concern from Her Majesty. It was decided to proceed with the meeting. Those present sat down at a heavy oak table. It was filled with documents and parchments. Behind him sat high-ranking members of the nobility and court counselors. Their faces were illuminated with concentration by the light of the candles. The Queen's birthday was approaching. This was a particularly important event, the first after her accession to the throne. Usually preparation for such a holiday was the job of the spouse. But due to the Queen's lack of a mate, this responsibility fell on the shoulders of others. And in this case, the choice fell on Duke Quinterel. It was his queen who personally chose to organize the holiday in honor of her. Wilhelmina Anjuel Freeman. That was the name of the beautiful queen. She received her title at 19 due to the death of the previous king. So there was only one heiress left in the royal family, the most noble girl. 4 years ago, she returned from long-term treatment in the principality. Then she attended a social party. The queen had noble features. She resembled portraits of great beauties. The girl stood out among others with her unique beauty. Her long blonde hair was like a stream of gold. They touched the shoulders, giving the beauty a majestic appearance. The queen's large, sparkling eyes were deep and mysterious. They attracted the attention of others, leaving no one indifferent. At this party, the queen fell in love with Duke de Mur at first sight. Even after the duke's refusal, the queen's feelings remained the same. When she heard about the disappearance of his fiancé, she thought that this was her chance to win her beloved. Soon the young marquise was declared dead. So, even as Freeman's queen, she continued to seek the duke's attention. But he didn't seem to notice the long-haired beauty at all. The duke was amazed at the ease with which the queen delegated the internal affairs of the palace to him. But her frankness made him wary. Worry about Marquise Robbie also remained a heavy burden. After all, he was afraid that the queen would find out about his bride and it would hurt her. Fear of failure forced the duke to abandon the preparations for the banquet. He suggested a more experienced candidate such as Duchess Arcana. Before, she organized holidays with extraordinary skill. It was noticeable that such an activity brought her only joy. The queen noticed that the duke was deeply concerned about the holiday. But finding an equally worthy person would not be easy. Therefore, she asked him to take charge of the organization, because it was a holiday in her honor. Suddenly, the duke's face became gloomy. The queen was amazed by this change. The guy explained that she deserved his devotion, but he was worried because of his lack of experience. The guy said that the beauty justifies her actions with loyalty. He was ready to celebrate, but was worried about his incompetence. However, this did not bother the queen at all. She wanted him to take charge of the holiday despite his inexperience. Those present understood that if the Duchess helped the guy, then everything would go fine. Preparations for the banquet could even be purely symbolic, but it could also be a true reflection of loyalty to the queen. The Duke still didn't want to do this. However, let's say completely different words. He expressed his consent, and this made the beauty very happy. Everyone present at the meeting looked at the guy in surprise. Next, someone present asked the queen a question. He wanted to know what she thought about marriage. This question came as a surprise to her. The queen had many enemies. Therefore, she should think about a successor. These words seemed very reasonable to the ruler. She decided to find out what the duke thought about this. The guy looked at the girl in surprise. His eyes widened in surprise. He had not expected such a question and for a moment lost his usual confidence. His gaze seemed frozen, trying to quickly come up with an answer. Fine wrinkles appeared on his forehead, indicating internal tension. He tried to find the right words to answer. Day Moore said he supported the lords. Over the course of this year, her position has gained sufficient stability, and the queen is admired by thousands of people. There are many worthy people from aristocratic families in the country. They are all loyal and kind. It was difficult for the duke to avoid the conversation. He invited the queen to help her choose an official candidate for the role of groom. The queen said that the heart is already occupied by a specific person. There was silence in the hall. Everyone wanted to know who she was talking about. The girl asked the duke why he didn't ask who it was. It was time for lunch and the meeting was over. The queen called the guy to come to her office. There was a massive wooden table in the office. Opposite the table stood a high chair with soft cushions, decorated with gold patterns. There were 2 exquisite porcelain cups on the table. The aromatic tea in them emitted a pleasant aroma, filling the room with warmth and peace. The queen began to say that she refused to get married for 4 years. The duke knew about this and felt sorry for the heroine. The beauty said that she didn't need an apology. Better, something more substantial. She didn't know how many confessions and refusals the guy received, but he was not ready to change his answer. The hero loved only his bride. The rejected girl looked at her beloved with surprise. Her usually firm and expressive gaze was shrouded in bewilderment. She asked why the duke could not forget the dead man. Her hands tensed and began to nervously fiddle with her dress. After all, 5 years have passed since his fiancé died in a road accident. The beauty had no more time to wait. After all this time she endured for his sake. She invited the duke to marry her, but the guy said that his bride was still alive. This surprised the queen extraordinarily. The guy said that his beloved recently returned home safe and sound. Deep surprise enveloped the queen's face. Her eyebrows rose and her eyes widened, as if trying to understand the unexpected turn in the conversation. The queen's cup of tea fell out of her hands. The girl stood and looked at the duke. She asked him what he meant. He apologized if he had suddenly frightened the queen and began to wipe off his tea-stained dress. The guy seemed to do it so tenderly and caringly. The queen asked if his bride was really still alive. After all, it would be incredible. The duke said that he saw her with his own eyes. When the girl's mother died, he went to her family's home and saw her there. The queen wondered why the duke rejected her proposal. Rejected simply because the ex-fiancé returned. But the guy said that he promised to be with the girl until the end of his days. The queen's gaze suddenly became upset. Surprise flashed in her eyes and her expression became sadder and more focused. She couldn't believe what she heard. The question of why this happened right now haunted her. The queen did not want the girl to die. But the beauty also could not understand why her rival had returned now. It would be better if she returned when they were already married. The queen apologized to the duke. She said that if it wasn't the duke next to her, then there would be no one else next to her. But the guy is trying to reason with her. He reminded his interlocutor that there are many men in the world who are much better than himself. If she tries to open her eyes, she will see them. These words aroused the queen's anger. She did not want to see anyone else near her except the Duke. The ruler asked him to leave his past relationship in the past because it would be better. Otherwise, she may issue an imperial decree, and it obliges the hero to marry her. She asked the Duke if he wanted her to die because of him. The Duke demonstrated his determination and persistence when he rejected the girl's proposal. It was clear in his gaze that he did not hesitate in his decision, and his words sounded firm and confident. The guy understood that the queen could get whatever she wanted. This irritated him incredibly, but the hero saw no other way out. Therefore, I had to tell about one more reason why he could not accept the offer. The queen asked what the reason was. The brunette said that he already has a child. The queen was even more surprised by this news. She couldn't believe how this became possible. After all, he's not even married. Therefore, the child could only be from his ex-fiancé. The queen believed that such things could not be taken at their word. 5 years have passed since Mabel disappeared. Therefore, the child cannot be immediately recognized as one's own. But the guy said that there is evidence of this. A child has traits that only appear in his family tree. The frustration on the queen's face was reflected in her eyes. A deep melancholy seeped through her mask of arrogance, revealing her true emotions. The first tear flowed down the queen's cheek. Her crying sounded pain and disappointment. It seemed as if her unspoken hopes were crumbling before her eyes. The Duke felt a heaviness in his chest as he watched her suffer. Guilt consumed him, reminding him of the decision that had shattered her world. The guy said that the child, moreover, was very similar to him, and since the hero became a dad, he cannot be near the queen. A marriage with him will negatively affect the kingdom and the reputation of the queen. But the rejected girl did not agree with this. She said that neither the first nor the second reasons are important to her. But the guy reminded that this was contrary to imperial laws. The queen's anger flared up like a fire burning in her heart. Her eyes sparkled with rage, and the words sounded like thunder breaking the silence. She needed this guy, and everything else was not important. For this, the girl was ready to do whatever it took, and even more. The Duke was silent. His eyes were full of deep thought. There was something mysterious in the silence which seemed to foreshadow an approaching storm. But then he realized that the queen might want to harm the girl. If this happens, then she better give up right away. The interlocutor took these words as a threat. But the guy said that this was not a threat, because he was her subordinate and could not talk to her so impudently. However, if this happened, he would never forgive anyone who would harm his family, even if it's the queen herself. The guy resolutely asked not to test his devotion to his family. Otherwise, his actions may be unexpected and decisive. After the conversation, the queen felt that she had lost control of herself. Fear of the future took over her. Her heart was full of grief and sadness. The queen said that despite the words of the interlocutor, this kingdom would be his. This is her will. So she advised the guy to give up. After the conversation, the Duke felt a heaviness in his heart and deep regret. He knew his decision had hurt the queen. The hero felt guilty. His soul was illuminated with anxiety, but not with doubts about his actions. The queen felt anger and resentment. Her heart was full of disappointment. She felt that her trust had been violated. Deep sadness and anxiety about the future took over her thoughts, and she felt the bitterness of loss and disappointment. The queen ordered her maid Christina to call Marcus Robbie to her, and do it as soon as possible. The following events take place at Mabel's house. Her sister came to visit her. She brought a lot of toys and other things for Patrick and his mother. She also brought a beautiful teddy bear, which the boy immediately liked. This bear was quite cute, and she brought a music box to her older sister Marie. The child was very happy with the new gift. The girl also brought her nephew several books with fairy tales because she thought he liked to read. The girl tried to be a good aunt. Mabel was grateful to her for this. The heroine played with her nephew for several hours. She really enjoyed spending time with the baby. The child seemed quite cute to the girl, because he looked like her sister. His mother confirmed their similarity. Children usually inherit the traits of their parents. This meant that the child also had his father's traits. As children grow older, their faces usually change, and it is true. So over time the boy may change in appearance. The younger sister raised her eyes. An expression of bewilderment and curiosity flashed through them. Her eyebrows raised slightly, and her gaze became more attentive and penetrating. Marie asked her sister if she was going to continue meeting with the Duke, but the girl replied that she was not like that. Therefore, there is no need to worry. The girl was very happy with the answer because she did not want her sister to move away from her again. Over the past 5 years of life without her older sister, It was very difficult for the heroine. The young mother expressed sympathy for her sister. Mabel was also grateful for the nice words addressed to her. The girl asked her son if he liked the toys he received. The child replied that he was very happy with such a gift. He called his aunt the best. The boy asked his mother to join the game. She agreed. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. The girl needed to meet a guest, so she was distracted from playing with her son. The heroine thought that it was Christina who had come. The moment she opened the door, her face showed mixed feelings of surprise and fear. Her gaze was frozen, as if she was dumbfounded and did not know how to react. Her ex-fiancé stood near the door. Suddenly, he began to hug her with all his might. The girl couldn't even imagine that he would do this. She was afraid that the old feeling would flare up in her again. That's why I asked him to let him go. The Duke was glad that the girl did not leave, as she had promised. However, the guy was worried and wondered what would happen if she did leave. He was afraid that she would disappear again without saying a word, just like last time. He wrapped his arms around her so warmly and confidently. There was a sincerity and tenderness in his embrace that spread around them. The hero repeated again that he was very afraid of losing the girl. But she replied that she had not left anywhere and was not going to leave. The brunette said that after the meeting he wanted to see the Marquis, but he was informed that he had returned to the Imperial Palace. The girl thought that her brother would return before everyone else, but Christina, who recently entered the room, said that Her Majesty had called him. Neither Christina nor the Duke knew the reason for this. The guy asked the girl not to leave just like that. After all, he has important news for her, so he asked his beloved to listen to him. This question is also related to Patrick. Mabel looked at the hero with a wary look. There was a child nearby, and he heard what was being said. The child's questioning gaze was full of curiosity and some wariness. His blue eyes opened wide, as if he was trying to unravel the mystery that lay before him. The parents decided to continue the conversation elsewhere. For example, with a cup of aromatic warm tea. The guy said that he was forced to tell the queen about Patrick and Mabel. The girl could not understand why this was needed, but the hero only expressed regrets. He was sorry that he had told the queen this news without first consulting the girl herself. Mabel was very upset by this. She did not want to spread the news of her return. But in the end, it became known. Duke said he had to admit he knew about heroin, and all because Her Majesty wants to marry him. The girl was very surprised. This was a big surprise for her. She wanted to know what answer the guy gave. The blonde hoped that he refused her, and it was true. Now she was trying to find an answer to why he did this. But there was nothing unusual in his refusal. Anyone could guess the reason. Everyone knows that his heart belongs only to Mabel. Of course, the heroine was pleased to hear this. She was flattered that the hero refused such a beauty because of her. But the guy continued talking. He explained that if it weren't for that conversation, others would still have found out about the girl. However, she wanted to leave before that happened. The guy could not understand how the young mother was going to live the rest of her life. After all, she doesn't have to hide anymore. Thus, she can ruin Patrick's childhood. Besides, the child needs a father. The brunette decided to find out if the girl was planning to run away abroad. But these were precisely the thoughts that came to her. There was a sudden awkward silence in the room. Like a thick veil, it surrounded those present. The silence was so thick that you could feel its pressure on your shoulders. The heroes did not dare to break the silence for some time. Since Mabel loved her child, the hero did not need to worry about him. There was something exciting and tense in the movements of her hands. Every gesture expressed internal struggle and uncertainty. The blonde was angry that the guy kept talking about what would be best. Her son initially thought that he had no father, and he was no stranger to it. Although in fact there are no children in this world who would think so. The guy understood that his son was just pretending. He is apparently afraid to ask his mother such questions. After all, his eyes shone with childish joy, curiosity about the world, and fear of upsetting anyone. The girl was clearly annoyed by these words. Her eyebrows knitted into an angry frown. An involuntary sigh escaped her lips. The father sitting next to him made a silent, dissatisfied expression. There was clear displeasure on his face. He was clearly annoyed. The guy grabbed the girl in his arms with such force, as if he was afraid of losing her forever. He held her close, trying to convey all his love through this gesture. In the midst of this embrace, he asked his beloved to marry him. The girl's heart beat with such force as if it was about to explode. The guy held her so tightly that she could not escape. The strength of the hug showed how strong the guy's feelings were, and the fact that he really is not ready to lose her again. He whispered words of love and marriage proposals into her ear again and again. The Duke could not understand why she chose the path of struggle rather than the easier path. The girl found it was a dream. It all feels like memories. Mabel believed that the guy was afraid to reveal his true intentions. That's why he decided to distract her. But the fear of losing his beloved made the guy's heart beat like crazy. Opening her eyes, Mabel asked to let her go. But the brunette continued to hold her. The heroine said that the title of husband of the Empress would suit him very well. Besides, this beauty loves him very much. Therefore, there is no need to upset Her Majesty. It is impossible not to take advantage of this opportunity. However, this title had no meaning for the hero. After these words, the Duke released the girl. He could not understand how his beloved could talk about another woman who liked him so easily. Mabel said that she did not believe in the sincerity of his love. She had already told this guy before. The girl asked me to believe this. In addition, the blonde said that she never loved her fiancé. She tried to say this so that he would believe her. After this, the heroine asked the guest to leave. She didn't even ask, she insisted. Before leaving, the Duke said that there was one thing that was important to remember. Even though their feelings are not mutual, he will still love only her. The girl stood in the middle of the room, absorbed in her thoughts. Her gaze was directed in the direction where her fiancé had just stood. There was hope in his eyes that he would turn around and come back to her. As the guy started to leave, Marquis Robbie returned. The owner invited the guy to go into his office for a conversation. The heroes felt very tense. The Duke decided to find out what the guy was talking about with the ruler. The blonde said that she forbade him to accept a marriage proposal for his sister from the Duke. The guest was interested in what answer his friend gave. The owner continued to explain. Despite the Empress's young age, the blood of the Emperor flows in her veins, and he doesn't want anyone to hold a grudge against him, or that his family would be harmed. He has no choice. In addition, it is important to take care of other family members. Therefore, the blonde invited the guy to accept the proposal of the young beauty. That would be a good title for him. The guest realized that the brother and sister shared the same thought. The girl has already said that she does not want to get married, and the Empress's order applies not only to the guy. Next, the Marquis spoke in more detail about the conversation with the Queen. The beauty said that his sister became a real hindrance for her. She didn't want to hear or know anything about the relationship between Mabel and the Duke. The ruler simply wanted to marry her beloved. If the guy helps dissuade his sister, he will be generously rewarded. The Queen was ready to give him everything he wanted. For example, marry into a famous family. The Queen could also write a matchmaking letter for the guy to become a royal concubine in a foreign country. And she could offer an increase in rank, for example, to the title of Duke. Then their conversation turned to the boy, Patrick. If Demur wants his son to live with him, whoever the Queen can adopt him, but only if he himself wants it. However, Brunet said that there was nothing he could not agree to become the Queen's husband. And even if Mabel chooses not him, the decision will remain the same. He was ready to be alone all his life until he died. After all, he only loves one girl. And because of the Queen, he is not going to change his decision. There is no need to worry about Mabel's safety. The hero said that you will always protect her. Next, he asked Robbie for a favor. He asked to convince the girl to agree with his proposal. This was the end of the conversation. The guest left the estate and got into the carriage. The blonde pondered their conversation. It seemed ridiculous and impossible for him to change his sister's opinion. He did not see any specific way to accomplish this. After all, the heroes of the current situation have very high standards. Nobody wants to give in to each other. Mabel called her brother when she saw that the guest had left. The heroes went to the library. The brother said that he had heard about his sister's previous meeting with the Duke. The girl confirmed this. The guy wanted to know what that conversation was about. She also said that the conversation was about a marriage proposal. Mabel also knew that her older brother was at a meeting with the Queen. The guy said that he rejected the Empress's offer. But if his sister agreed, she would be generously rewarded. The heroine stood frozen in indecision. There was confusion on her face, as if she was lost in a maze of her thoughts. If the Empress hated the girl, then the Queen could harm their entire family. The heroine was very afraid of the ruler's revenge, so she decided she wouldn't change her mind. The girl firmly decided not to marry the Duke. The brother decided to clarify why this decision was made. After all, it seemed to him that his sister still loved this man. This thought haunted the guy, so he asked his sister a direct question. The brother wanted to know if the girl loved this man, but she herself didn't know the answer. The girl kept wondering whether she should hate him or love him. After all, he is the father of her child, and the heroine loves the baby very much. Therefore, feelings for the Duke are no higher than feelings for one's own son. Despite the marriage proposal, the brother decided to clarify whether hatred of the guy had anything to do with the reason why she planned to leave. He wanted to know what that brunette did to her, but the heroine didn't want to talk about it now. She still planned to live with her brother for a while. Peace and safety for your son. The girl hoped that her fiancé would give up. The blonde said he would hope so too, so he asked his sister not to worry too much about what happened. Her Majesty is not one of those people who uses power to solve personal problems. In addition, the Duke promised to look after his beloved. The brother said that the guy promised to protect her no matter what. Mabel was very pleased to hear these words. She suggested that her brother rest, since he had recently returned from a meeting. The girl apologized for the fact that she was probably causing trouble, but for her brother it was nothing. After all, they are one family. The guy suggested leaving formalities in the conversation. His gaze slides from one point to another, expressing inner unrest. He couldn't figure out what to do. The guy might have acted calm before, but he didn't know how to act in the long run. And they say that time heals. A month has passed since those events. The day came when Freeman's men performed a dance of blessing. The capital was filled with cheerful people singing loudly. It was Empress Angel's birthday. The party was simply amazing. There were excellent and comprehensively organized events. It was even strange that the Duke organized all this. This is exactly the level of organization expected from a holiday in honor of Her Majesty. The scale of the event was impressive. Some guests began to think that the guy wanted to become the Empress's husband. If so, it will surely happen soon. Otherwise, why throw such a loud party? The guy always looked incredibly handsome. The Duke was the epitome of exquisite beauty. His features were framed by thick black eyelashes. The black hair was as shiny as silk, and gave the look a unique elegance. The hero's smile was like a ray of sunshine. The girls in the crowd dreamed of just talking to the Duke, and someone tried to find words to invite him to dance. The Queen entered the hall. In the crowd, she saw her beloved. Since he had already come to the holiday, he should have stayed close to the Empress. The guy apologized for not greeting the beauty earlier. He congratulated her on the holiday. The girl in love was pleased to hear such words. The Queen invited him to dance together to discuss one issue. But the guy didn't see the need for this. He suggested discussing the issue without dancing. The heroine clarified that this conversation should remain secret. The Duke decided to explain himself to the girl. He said he wasn't feeling well today. Therefore, he will not be able to dance. The Queen could not take the refusal personally and decided to act. The guy realized that she had conceived a cunning plan and was going to carry it out. The Empress walked through the hall with graceful grace and a commanding gaze, as if she carried deep mysteries and secrets within herself, not seeing any obstacles on the way to her goal. The Duke did not look happy. His gaze was filled with restrained discontent. The guy realized that he would not like the Queen's plan. The hall was filled with guests. Their numerous conversations created a constant background of noise. He filled the room with liveliness and energy. The Queen walked up the stairs to the stage with grace and majesty. Her gaze and posture convey confidence and determination. They emphasized her status as a leader. There was elegance and sophistication in her gait, as if every step was thought out and honed to perfection. Her outfit and jewelry shone against the lively crowd, and the exit attracted the attention of everyone present at the event. Taking the stage, the Queen thanked everyone for coming to her birthday. On this special day, the beauty had only one wish. She decided to voice it on stage. The Empress asked the Duke to come up to her in front of everyone. "Get up and come closer." The guy had no choice but to obey, even though he was uncomfortable. Every step expressed hostility towards the girl. Come on stage, he stood next to her. Next, the Queen invited him to become the prince of this kingdom in front of everyone. The Empress has made a public proposal and it cannot be refused. It was an order given on behalf of the Queen. The girl looked at her beloved with hope, but he was not ready to accept this offer. The guy looked at the beauty with a cold, angry gaze, like this. This was not the first time Her Majesty asked to marry her, but everything was in private. This is the first time she has voiced her wish in public. Quite a bold decision, considering that the guy is just a servant. The girl thought that he would not be able to refuse a public proposal, but this is an abuse of the loyalty of subordinates. This act incredibly angered the guy. Plucking up courage, he decided to act. The Duke turned to the ruler and expressed his condolences to her. The hero also explained that he was unable to obey the order. The girl in love looked in bewilderment. She couldn't believe that the Duke behaved like that. But the guy continued and explained the reason. In front of those present, he was not afraid to say that he had a child. There was commotion in the hall. The Queen did not expect him to tell the truth. Just like that in front of everyone. As if it wasn't enough for him to simply refuse. So he also dared to look at the girl so coldly and emotionlessly. Unable to bear it, the beauty grabbed him by the jacket as if threatening him. She said he shouldn't have treated her with such disdain. But the guy repeated that he could not agree. After all, he already has a child from another girl. For this reason, he cannot stand next to Her Majesty. Otherwise, it will be a deception of the royal family. And disrespect for the Queen herself. Having bowed to the Queen in front of witnesses, he asked to cancel the order. Then he simply left. Without expressing any warm emotions towards the Queen, he simply walked down the stairs. The girl stood rejected and offended in front of everyone. She saw how those around her began to whisper among themselves. People in the hall could not understand what was happening. Someone thought they heard the words wrong on stage. Others said it simply couldn't happen. The Duke cannot have an illegitimate child. Still others began to speculate who the girl could be. The day was approaching evening. The Duke was already approaching the carriage. But suddenly his beloved's brother called out to him. The Marquis did not know what had happened, so he asked his friend about it. The guy replied that it was the end. He didn't expect Her Majesty to do something like this. The blonde understood the hero's confusion, but he didn't expect that he would tell everyone about Patrick's existence. After all, after this everyone can start blaming the Duke. The brunette was surprised that his friend was so worried, but he only conveyed Mabel's words. The Duke began to wonder what this could mean. Is the girl really worried about him? His friend said that if he were his sister, he would also not want his son's presence to cause him any inconvenience. The guy replied that this was impossible. The son will never be, no matter what happens. The Duke was in a very bad mood that day, but thanks to the Marquis, he felt much better. Although Robbie didn't understand it. The brunette said goodbye to his friend. He was supposed to start a business trip tomorrow. The Duke told a friend that his family was in an unenviable position, but he asked them not to worry. He planned to put an end to this situation soon. The guy's friend decided to ask what he was going to do, but the Duke left the question unanswered. He just looked with a silent gaze. Entering the carriage, he said that in 5 days he would tell about this at their estate. These words greatly intrigued the brother of his beloved. He had no choice but to agree to these conditions. The Duke entered the carriage and it drove off, and the Marquis looked after him. He began to wonder what his friend was going to do. And what outcome could the situation have given today's events? Mabel was at home at the time. She sat in a room shrouded in the warm, dim light of the table lamps, creating a cozy atmosphere. Light curtains that let in light gave the room a cozy feel. There are pictures on the wall, and velvet wallpaper emphasized nobility. A fireplace burns in the corner, casting a soft, warm glow. The mother was sitting in a chair, waiting for her son. There was a smile on her face and hope in her heart. Suddenly the door swung open and the little son ran into the room with joy on his face. He immediately rushed to his mother's tender embrace. Their gazes met. This moment filled the room with warmth and love, as if nothing else existed besides the two of them. Mabel asked if her son had finished washing. The boy agreed and said that he was trying to behave well. The girl tenderly continued to hug her child and kiss him. She offered to dry his hair. The boy began to ask why he didn't see anyone else in the house except them. He couldn't figure out where everyone had gone. His mother replied that everyone had gone to a party. The child naively began to ask what the party meant and what people did at it. The girl explained that at such events she enjoys eating drinks, and from communicating with many people. The boy began to ask if his peers attended parties. He was bored and also wanted to attend such an event, but his mother could not understand why her son would do this. The boy looked at her with innocent eyes and said that he also wanted to chat with friends. It was quite unexpected to hear this from him. Mabel asked if it was really difficult for her son to live in this house. Isn't he having fun playing with his mom? Of course, it was a fun activity for a child. After all, there are a lot of toys and books around. But the kid missed meeting his friends. This confession made his mother a little sad. So she promised to take him to such an event when he was older. Apparently living in hiding without being able to leave the mansion was a bad idea. Therefore, it is better to leave here as soon as possible. These thoughts haunted the girl. She hugged her son with love and care, trying to convey all her tenderness to him. The boy asked his mother how handsome he was. Can its beauty be compared, for example, with the beauty of heaven or earth? The child loved to fantasize and looked at the world around him with curiosity. He wondered if he could be compared with his father's beauty. These words struck the girl. He had never mentioned it before. The boy understood that after all he must have a father, even if he's never heard of it. The girl had really never told the child about her father before. The Duke's words came to the blonde's mind that the child understood everything. Apparently, this time the guy was right. The awkward silence of the heroine was interrupted by a maid who entered the room. She reported that the owner and the rest of the residents had returned. The girl, taking her son by the hand, went to meet the arrivals. She was surprised why the party ended so early. After all, it was a little after 8 in the evening. The thought of someone's illness flashed through her head. But Christina continued the conversation. She reported that the atmosphere at the banquet was not very good. The girl decided to find out what happened at the banquet. The heroine's younger sister began to explain. It was about Her Majesty. Mabel was a little scared because she remembered the conversation with the Duke about the Queen. She thought that the beauty really did as she promised. A frown showed the girl's anxiety. Christina continued to explain that she also did not imagine this outcome. Surely the ruler was ashamed to be in such a situation. These words calmed Mabel a little. The girl thought that the Duke deliberately rejected the ruler's proposal. He first approached the Queen and then refused her. If he wanted to get an advantage in that marriage, then it was worth shaking up his relationship with her. But the heroine was haunted by the thought that, in the end, the guy would marry the Queen. She held her son's hand tightly, betraying her concern. After all, she was afraid that by refusing public courtship he would reveal Patrick's existence. Because of this, it will be difficult to leave secretly. Upon returning from an important trip, the Duke of Mers also had a difficult conversation at home. His sister was waiting for him. Her name was Margarita de Quintrell. She greeted her brother with words about his madness, but the guy pretended that he didn't understand what he was talking about. The girl decided to tell what people are saying about him now. For example, that he has 10 mistresses, but now there are probably 20 of them. And the mother of an illegitimate child was the daughter of traitors. At the meeting, she was asked questions about baptism. This made her very angry. She heard these words personally, and the girl couldn't even imagine what rumors were circulating behind her back. Not only did the guy refuse the public courtship of the Queen, the most powerful person in the empire, but also for this reason, because of an illegitimate child. This became sensational gossip. For the guy, this was expected. He didn't see anything surprising in this. The Duke didn't care what was said behind his back, but talking about 20 mistresses was already too much for him. However, his sister was not in the mood for jokes. She was worried that her brother would marry this lady with a child. Margarita understood that her brother felt responsible for the child. She also knew about his feelings for this girl, but the lady said that she did not want to become his wife. The sister suggested that his brother not stick with people who don't like him. No matter how hard he tries, he still won't be able to charm her. These words hurt the guy very much. Not wanting to continue the conversation, he decided to leave the mansion. And all because the Duke was going to visit the Marquis family. Arriving at them, the guy sat down at a table on the veranda. There was a lot of greenery and flowers around. His posture expressed calm and dignity. He held a cup of tea in his hand, enjoying the aroma and warmth of the drink. The beautiful cup was a work of art. Its exquisite design is eye-catching. Every line and pattern was executed with special attention to detail. The Duke looked into the distance, as if he was deep in thought or enjoying the landscape in front of him. The guy sat at the table with an air of confidence and expectation. Everything about him spoke of inner determination. The girl slowly approaches him, and the Duke greeted her with his gaze. Demore called his beloved to come to him. The girl greeted him. They haven't seen each other for a long time. Therefore, the blonde was nervous and unconsciously looked at the hero. She came closer to him and sat down at the table. Her portion of tea was already ready. In an uncertain voice, Mabel said the word "why." The brunette expected that she would have many more questions. The girl wanted to know why he refused Her Majesty's courtship. There must be a very good reason for this, and she wanted to know her. The guy asked what the interlocutor meant. After all he wants is to marry his beloved. And the reason is not only the responsibility for Patrick, although the son is undoubtedly dear to the hero, but the girl he loved was much more important to him. He continued to look at her with loving eyes. The girl said that the Duke did not understand her feelings at all. Her voice was sad, but the guy did not agree with this. With a smile on his face, he said that he would do everything in his power to convince the girl of his love. Mabel didn't know why he was doing this. The hero further explained that if the parents are not married, the parent with a higher status should have custody of the child. These words caused horror in the girl's eyes. She realized that the Duke could take her son away from her anytime he wanted, and the guy made his interlocutor understand the seriousness of his intentions. Out of surprise, the girl decided to find out if he was really planning this. But that's not what the hero meant. He believed that a child was not a thing. Separation from his mother at this age will have a detrimental effect on his emotions. The Duke wanted his beloved girl and son to come live with him, but this proposal required careful thought. The heroine did not know what to do. Sitting on the veranda, she had many questions about the future. The girl went through the options that she considered appropriate in this situation. The guy admitted that he acted wrongly towards the bride, and because of this, she could be cruel to him. However, he wanted to know what kind of action she considered unacceptable. The hero couldn't even guess what was wrong. He wanted his bride to tell him this, but she only looked at the groom with a sad look. The Duke realized that she did not want to talk about it, so he decided not to force her. But he asked to be given a chance. The girl's eyes shone at that moment. She was pleased that the Duke still took care of her, and that he doesn't put pressure on her. However, the guy asked to give him only 1 year. The hero asked to trust him with only 1 year of her life, so that during this time she becomes the Duchess of Quintrell. If the girl continued to hate him after that, he promised to let her go, both her and her child. The heroine couldn't believe it. This proposal seemed impossible. She was afraid of being deceived. Therefore, I decided to refuse at first. The guy offered to draw up a receipt to win the girl over. He proposed to completely transfer custody of the child to the girl, and after his death, Patrick will inherit the duchy. And after they divorce, Mabel is free to remarry. However, the brunette assured the girl that even if they divorce, there will be no other woman in his life. He decided to swear to it. Perhaps this would be a good choice for a girl. Close your eyes to everything and live together for just 1 year. But the heroine could not understand why the guy did not understand what he had done wrong. Is it really? And why is he asking for a chance to atone? The girl's imagination began to paint a picture of an accident in the mansion. She thought that the Duke would quite possibly try to kill her at home. But why then make a receipt is not clear. Many questions arose in the heroine's head. She tried to compare the events of the past with what she knows now. But nothing worked out for her. It was hard for the girl to understand what the guy was thinking. But still, she promised to think about his proposal. The girl asked the Duke to return as soon as possible, because it was time for her to go too. The groom asked how long it would take the girl to give him an answer. The blonde agreed to voice her decision next week. It's not that long, the guy thought. If time is needed, it must be provided. Hugging his beloved goodbye, he said that he would look forward to their next meeting. His eyes seemed to glow with joy and happiness. Did he really ensure that he was at least given a chance? This is already better than it was before. The guy was happy about the warming in his relationship with his beloved. After some time, the queen summoned the heroine. The girl did not expect Her Majesty's call. They had never met before. But still, Mabel decided not to refuse and come to the meeting. The queen was looking forward to her. When they met, they greeted each other politely. An important conversation began in the royal chambers. The ruler congratulated the guest. Her return home was safe. The girl thanked her new friend for this. The empress further said that she had heard about the girl's child. She wanted to find out who his father is. Mabel honestly admitted and named the man. The queen said a proposal had been made to His Majesty for the celebration, but he rejected it, despite the many spectators. His excuse was that the child had already been born by his interlocutor. The empress further said that she had asked the girl's brother for a favor in advance. She was patient, trusting in his honesty. But the situation has changed. The girl in love decided to find out whether Mabel would marry the Duke. But the heroine reassured the princess by saying that she was not looking for marriage with a guy. However, if she does not agree, she may lose custody of her child. The ruler realized that the Duke was threatening her interlocutor, so she could give up and agree to this. The empress began to quickly go through options in her head on how she could emerge victorious from this situation. And so she came up with a solution. She promised to guarantee Mabel's custody of the boy, but only if she does not become the Duke's wife. The girl replied that she just wanted to live peacefully with her child. If she could protect him, she would immediately reject the Duke's proposal. The ruler promised to ensure that custody of the boy remained in the hands of the girl. But according to the law of the country, this is impossible. Although there may be some restrictions for the empress, this definitely won't be a problem for her. Even if the nobles object, she will sort everything out. Therefore, the interlocutor need not worry. All a girl has to do is promise something. If the queen provides custody of the child, then she will under no circumstances marry the duke. The girl began to think about this proposal. Doubts began to arise in her head whether to agree to this or not. But in the end, she decided to give the empress a positive answer, and she was very glad that they managed to agree and reach mutual understanding. She also asked not to go back on her words in the future, and yet it is better to keep their conversation a secret from the duke. Both girls understood why. After this, the queen dismissed the guest. Although she understood the strangeness of her question, her curiosity was stronger. After all, they already have a child together whom they both love. The beauty was afraid that her interlocutor might change her mind. But still, she allowed not to answer this question. There were probably serious reasons for this, and the question might seem stupid. The ruler once again congratulated the girl on her return, and Mabel left the royal palace, passing through long corridors. She felt something unpleasant in her soul even after this conversation. However, she was glad that she would receive custody of her son. But even for a queen, it can be difficult to break the law by going against the duke's house. If Her Majesty opposes the law, or if she enters into an arranged marriage with the duke. But she had nothing to lose anyway. Therefore, the girl decided not to worry about anything. Turning around, she saw the duke walking towards her. It is difficult to describe his surprise at their meeting in this place. The guy decided to ask the girl what she was doing here. The heroine urgently needed to come up with an answer. She didn't want to say that the queen's servant asked her to meet, and in general, the girl was not going to come here alone. Therefore, Mabel decided to ask the duke what he was doing here. After visiting Robbie's estate, he came here as he finished his business trip. But the girl never managed to dodge the question. The guy asked him again. The heroine began to come up with new excuses. The version of seeing her brother seemed more or less plausible to her. That's why she voiced it. But the brunette didn't believe it. There were no scheduled meetings that day. Therefore, there is no need for the Marquis to appear in the castle. The girl realized that she had been caught in a lie. The thought flashed through the hero's mind that the blonde had come here to meet Her Majesty. This thought scared him extraordinarily. He couldn't even imagine what the conversation could be about. The girl was scared when she heard the truth. The movement of her hands further betrayed her excitement. The hero couldn't help but notice this. He always saw when the bride was hiding something. He touched her hand and pointed out the trembling of her fingers. They trembled so much that they could not help but give the girl away. It was clear that she really was not telling the truth. She felt bad about being caught. But you can't say anything else. The guy understood everything, so he asked why she was meeting the queen. Wanting to avoid the question, she asked not to take such an insignificant action into her head. The girl said that the guy attaches too much importance to this visit. She and the empress did not discuss any important topics. The guy thought that after this conversation, his beloved probably knew about his experiences, but he used to think that she didn't care. The hero once again asked what the conversation was about, but the girl still did not answer. It was as if she didn't want to give away this secret. The guy realized that the queen told her to remain silent about the conversation, and perhaps even threatened the girl. But she denied it. Mabel said that the duke overreacts to even the smallest things. That's why she doesn't want to say what the conversation was about. The girl once again asked him not to worry about it, but he couldn't leave everything as it was. The guy decided to find out the answer at any cost, but he understood that the bride would not tell him anything. Therefore, he will have to ask the queen himself. Mabel grabbed his arm, trying to stop him. She did not want the hero to ask the queen about their conversation. After all, from the outside, it may look like she complained to him. The duke slowly turned to her. His eyes radiated an unusually warm gaze, and all because the girl, for such a long time, touched him for the first time herself. She took his hand herself. This has never happened recently. The girl's gaze radiated awkwardness from this. It seemed to her that she herself could not understand her action. She asked the duke not to create additional problems for her. Then she headed towards the exit, and the duke began to guess what was going on. He offered to give her a tour of the castle, but Mabel was already leaving, so she was forced to refuse. A beautiful sunset spread its rays across the sky, coloring it in shades of orange, pink, and purple. The sun was slowly falling towards the horizon. The girl came home. Christina met her at the doorstep of the house. The heroine told Chris that she was at a meeting with Her Majesty. The friend was worried about the girl. After all, this was their first meeting with the queen. In addition, Chris knew that her friend had also met the duke. but she had no idea what they were talking about. Mabel was embarrassed to talk about what happened. She wanted it to remain a secret, but still she had to admit that she had received proposals from the Duke and the Queen, and in any case, she will be able to raise Patrick. The girl did not want to become the Duke's wife, but I hoped that time would put everything in its place. The blonde asked her friend to keep this conversation between them. Chris understood everything. At this time, the maid came and called them to dinner, and little Patrick ran towards his mother with joyful hugs. He asked where she had been. The boy wanted to play with the girl, but she left. That's why the child was sad all this time. The young mother said that she had an important meeting. Patrick hoped that this was a meeting with the very uncle he liked. Those present were surprised at this child's assumption. The girl said that the meeting was with another person, but she also wondered why her son remembered the Duke so often. The heroine asked her son whether he had had dinner or not yet. The son replied that he was sadly waiting for his mother to have dinner together. Mabel was ready to do anything to stay with her beloved son. After some time, a meeting was held again in the royal palace. All those present gathered. They looked forward to discussing important issues of the state. One of those present informed the queen that King Teslana wanted her to marry him. This was unexpected for the beauty. She couldn't believe this would happen. However, the king was looking forward to this event. At this moment, the Duke experienced extraordinary relief. He hoped that he would now be free from the queen's advances. The eyes were full of hope. It was a good offer for Her Majesty. The king was very ambitious and generous. All those present supported this opinion. Another subject began to tell me that he also had a friend from Tesla, and he says that the king is distinguished by his intelligence and humanity. Besides this, he is incredibly handsome. This is an excellent opportunity to strengthen cooperation between the two countries. In addition, this state has enormous potential for development. The queen sat at her table deep in thought. Now her heart was already occupied, and she was deciding what to do next. After all, Tesla is truly a country with untapped opportunities. But she wasn't interested in that. The Duke decided to ask again in front of everyone what reasons she had for refusing. The beauty began to tell that their royal family lives away from society. So, a warm welcome from a foreign queen would not be appropriate. Because of this, disagreements may arise in their family. She also would not approve of the king's rule in Freeman. Those present suggested that she choose another aristocrat as her husband. Then the queen suddenly changed the topic. Turning to Demore, she said that she wanted to talk about his child. The empress believed that custody should be transferred to the mother. The ruler only saw him as her husband. But if a child prevents this, then this problem can be solved without hesitation. However, the guy objected. According to royal law, custody rights belong to him, and the laws created by our ancestors should not be broken. The beauty said that everything will be done according to the law. She is the queen and has the right to do so. These words both frightened and saddened the Duke. Deciding to defend himself, he added that by choosing him as a husband, the queen would lose her reputation. Those around him began to support the Duke. The queen's husband must be pure, and if it is different, then the image of both the Duke and the ruler will be destroyed. Regardless of whether the queen accepts the king's proposals or not, she should find a chosen one among the local aristocracy. Another person present said that his son was just looking for a bride. He decided to ask the queen's opinion about this guy. New proposals regarding her future husband rained down on her. The aristocrats asked the beauty to consider these candidates. Despite this, the Duke believed that the child should be raised by his own mother. The queen stopped him and said that she was doing everything for his sake. Although she knew about everything, his fierce loyalty impressed the girl even more. She wanted to repay this. The beauty reminded that once a guy gets married, the boy will become a stain on his marriage. But the brunette asked not to worry about this. The empress did not understand why the interlocutor remained so calm. But then the Duke shocked her. He said that he had decided to marry the child's mother. These words caused great bewilderment among the ruler. The first thing she thought about was what she heard. After all, this couldn't have happened. But the guy continued. He said that he loves this woman and this is obvious to everyone. Plus, they have a child for whom he is responsible. There was an awkward silence in the hall. No one dared to break it or say a word. Several minutes passed like this, but one of those present asked the queen what he should convey to King Tesla. From these words, the hall was filled with loud and ringing laughter. The queen could not contain herself not to laugh, even though it surprised others. The girl asked the Duke if he really thought that Mabel would agree to marry him. She asked if the guy knew the girl's true opinion on this matter. Her and her child. The ruler felt naive and deceived. Just recently she talked with this girl and she promised her not to do that. Now the beauty learns about the opposite outcome of the situation. So she has no choice. The girl ordered the child to be brought to the palace. The duke was unhappy with this order. He feared for his son. There was hatred for the queen in his eyes. Deciding to stand up for him, the guy said that his words came from a pure heart. He even swore on his honor and the honor of his ancestors. The queen replied that she wanted to believe him, but it is better to see once than to hear 100 times. The girl agreed after talking with the child and Mabel to admit defeat. The guy's face became very gloomy. Extreme dissatisfaction was easily read in his eyes. The Grand Duke looked like this because of some boy. No matter what the guy encountered before or heard, he always remained impeccably calm. But because of these two, his calmness left him. The queen asked the duke to show her his son. Otherwise, everyone will be punished. This conversation took place during the day in the royal palace, and in the evening the details of this conversation were told to Mabel by her brother. After all, he was present there too. It looks like the queen's pride has been badly wounded. Otherwise, why would she show everyone that the duke was wrong? The blonde was worried about her son, because he was only 4 years old. She didn't want him to be shown off as an aristocrat at that age. The girl inquired about the duke's reaction and answer. Was he against it? The brother replied that the duke was treated cruelly in front of everyone. The queen promised the girl to transfer custody, but in the end she stuck a knife into her. Mabel wasn't afraid of her, but she couldn't let Patrick get hurt. To protect her son, the girl went to the duke. Approaching his mansion, she saw that these places had not changed a bit. Upon entering, she was greeted by a servant. They haven't seen him for a long time. Mr. Lawrence did not seem to change during this time. He led the girl through the corridors of the palace. In the corridor, the bright rays of the sun glistened on the floor. Even this corridor remained the same. The walls and powerful columns have not changed at all. Some things have changed, though. These are the ones who lived in this house. A young mother came into the guy's office to talk and protect her son. The duke was incredibly happy to see the girl. His face broke into a smile at the sight of his guest. He was truly surprised. The hero did not expect Mabel to come here, but he understood that the reason for the girl's coming was not related to the desire to see him. The reason must be much more serious. Surely something happened to the girl. No matter what, the brunette would be happy to help her. But now was not the time to say flattering words to each other. After all, the heroine heard what happened at the last meeting in the kingdom. The guy did not want to discuss this issue with the guest. But nevertheless, she asked her ex-fiancé's opinion about this situation. The duke decided to calm the girl down. He said that no one was going to put their son on public display. After all, there is a way to show it only to the queen. Therefore, you should not worry so much about this situation. However, the girl said that the queen had previously promised to transfer custody to her, provided that Mabel does not marry the hero. And because of what happened, she began to worry that the promise would not be fulfilled. During the conversation, the girl was very worried. After all, now she needed to give a final answer to the guy. Having thought it over again, she agreed to become his wife for a year. The hero felt as if he had been doused with cold water. His beloved's answer was so unexpected for him, but on the other hand, he was unusually happy with her decision. He couldn't believe she agreed. Since the queen wants to see Patrick and has put forward such conditions, then it was time for the girl to put herself in a more advantageous position. The guy still could not say a word, as he tried to understand the motives of his beloved. Mabel asked why he was looking at her like that, but the hero expressed surprise at the reason for such an act. He stood up from his chair and looked at the girl with a piercing gaze. She couldn't understand what was happening. After all, with such an act, she wanted to show that she trusted the guy more than the queen. The hero came closer to her and bending down said that he was very worried about her. She's probably worried about him too. But Mabel objected. She tried to explain that she had no such motives. She's just sorry that she and her son caused so much trouble for the duke. However, the guy never considered them a burden to himself. And a mistake too. He will never consider them that way in the future. And in general, the opinions of others were not so important for the guy. The heroine could not understand why the guy said such words. After all, there are a lot of rumors about them now. But the brunette suggested not to pay attention to them. It was difficult for the young mother. It's hard to ignore what other people say. After all, everyone around was just discussing them. How could such problems mean nothing? But by this she once again proved that she was worried about the guy, even though her words said otherwise. The girl considered this simple politeness towards the father of her child. The heroine asked the groom to keep his promise, to let her go after a year. The Duke offered to draw up an agreement so that the girl would not worry and would trust him. Demore also remembered the promise to appoint his son as successor to the estate. He made sure to mention this point in the contract, even though it was not important for the girl now. Without realizing it, she was very happy with this guy's act. And now her son Patrick will escape everyone's hatred. The contract will be notarized by their lawyer. There will be no problems with this. But Mabel realized that Patrick would still have to be introduced to the queen. However, she came up with a much simpler solution. The castle at night was shrouded in a mysterious atmosphere. The moonlight penetrated through the high window arches and created a play of shadows on the walls. And in the room, the girl put her son to bed, surrounding him with care and warmth. The time was late. The child should no longer hesitate to go to sleep. The little boy, hugging a teddy bear, happily immersed himself in games. He was unaware of the secrets hiding behind the castle walls. The heroine was thinking about how to tell her son about his father. Mabel decided to ask Patrick if he remembered the Duke who came to see him. The kid immediately remembered the tall and handsome uncle. For some reason, he liked to remember this man. The child thought that he wanted to visit them. After all, they haven't had him for a long time. But his mother explained that the Duke is a very busy man. The girl asked the child if he wanted his uncle to come visit again. The boy agreed with a joyful cry. The heroine was very surprised by this, because they barely knew each other. But the kid continued to talk about this man only from the good side. This surprised Mabel very much, although such a reaction from her son will certainly make it easier for her to explain. The most important thing for the girl was that the Duke be accepted by his son. And she was glad that the child liked the man. The girl asked her son what he thought about living together with that uncle. The boy answered with a joyful voice that he would be glad if he lived in the same house with him. But the heroine clarified that the question about living in her uncle's house. She wanted to know if her son would agree to this option. The child agreed to this too. Even though I didn't know this person very well, and yet the boy had never been to his house. And if he moved, he would not be able to see his aunts and uncles. The girl wanted this not to upset the child either. The boy replied that he really liked his new uncle, and they will be able to visit their relatives, uncle and aunt. But then the child asked an unexpected question. He said that since Mom and he would live at this uncle's house, she would probably marry him. Curiosity shone in the child's eyes. He was interested in knowing the answer to his question. His aunt said that when people love each other, they get married. The child realized that his mother loved this man. But the girl assured the boy that she loved her son much more than the others. This was pleasant for the baby to hear. But he asked again if his mother loved his father. Mabel was very surprised how her son realized that that man was his father. And she decided that it was better to really tell now. Otherwise, it will be too late later. Her son is a smart boy. Therefore, he will understand everything. The heroine started a conversation. She said the Duke's name but could not say a word further. However, the boy continued. He said it was his dad. The girl was amazed how the baby knew everything. After all, she didn't talk about it. The child said he was just guessing. His hair color is like his mother's, and his eyes are the same color as his father's. It was the same with his friends, and he made a conclusion based on the general eye color. Patrick was a very smart boy, and Mabel was afraid that she would hurt him when she told him about it. Because of this, she hid the truth from her son about his father. The boy had a hard time understanding why this would hurt anyone. The girl replied that it was all because her uncle was not around. The child said that there were probably reasons for this, so Mom doesn't have to worry about it. He was very happy that now the three of them would live together. The heroine asked again whether her little son was upset because of this news. Surprisingly, the boy reacted very maturely to the absence. But in fact, the child simply did not understand why he should be upset. Despite his age, he had his own thoughts. But for a long time, the girl perceived them in her own way. It turned out that this baby is older than even his mother. It was already late and they needed to fall asleep. The girl covered her son with a blanket. He asked her to sing him a lullaby. He began to fall asleep to the gentle voice of his mother and the sweet melody. The heroine looked at her little son with tenderness. She understood that he was a very wonderful baby. At this time, the maids kept the Duke of Quinterel's estate especially clean. They cleaned all the rooms until they were sparkling, so that the owners will definitely like it. At this time, Margarita arrived. She said that guests would arrive very soon. Therefore, preparation must be completed as soon as possible. However, everything was almost ready. Margot decided to find her brother. If he is late, there may be problems. The servant said that he warned the guy before leaving, and he promised not to be late. Even on such a joyful day for him, the guy showed himself to be a workaholic. But this is a difficult event, and it's his birthday. The hero's sister was worried that he would be late for congratulations. Then it will be a real nightmare. She wanted everything to go smoothly this time. But I understood that this was unlikely to happen. She had a very strange feeling, as if something bad is going to happen. As night fell, the castle suddenly came to life. Numerous guests began to gather at the Duke's house. At this time of night, the queen drove up to the mansion. She was so beautiful, like a moon goddess. Her unique beauty radiated nobility and charm. Her gaze, like moonlight, penetrates the darkness and illuminates the hearts of her subjects. The beauty arrived with her faithful maid Chris. She asked the girl if the gift was ready for the Duke. It was strange for the queen that she felt uneasy today, as if she sensed something bad ahead. The gift was already completely ready for delivery. It was possible to enter the estate. The servants understood that it was time for the Empress to surrender. After all, she is unlikely to win the favor of the Duke. But no one dared to say it out loud. After all, everyone was afraid of falling out of favor with the ruler. Entering the hall, the queen caught the envious glances of those around her. She looked truly incredible. Those around her joyfully greeted her. The queen decided to find out where the Duke was. At that moment, he was just entering the hall. The hero's sister made an incredibly wonderful banquet, and the guests emphasized this with compliments to the guy. The Empress called out to the brunette. Turning around, he saw the girl, but he did not dare to take a single step forward. The guy looked at the beauty from afar. Bowing, he thanked the queen for coming, but she couldn't help but come, because today is the birthday of her loved one. The beauty asked if the guy worked today. However, the Duke's behavior spoke for itself. He probably didn't have a day off today. The ruler decided to flatter the guy. She said that preparing what was promised must have been tedious. The hero decided to take advantage of the situation and asked for rest. The queen did not see anything wrong with this and offered to take a vacation at any time. She decided to tell him about the gift she had prepared for him. They could open it together. The guy politely refused. He said that he was honored just by the queen's coming here. The queen said that this gift was very valuable, so it should be opened now. But the guy decided to open it when they were among other people. Then the queen's kindness would become known to everyone. This answer amazed the beauty very much, but she decided not to voice her thoughts out loud. The girl thanked the guy for thinking that way about her. Standing in the middle of the hall, the Duke asked to bring him the queen's gift. It had to be opened by the birthday boy personally. The beauty once again congratulated her beloved. After thanking her, Demore began to open the gift. It contained ancient clothes that the queen's great-grandfather had worn. These were this man's favorite clothes. The queen's great-grandfather was the first and only queen consort in Fromagne's history. He wore this outfit to all official events. The gift revealed the beauty's intentions. She asked the Duke's opinion about the present, but he packed it again and promised to keep the clothes. Then the queen again began trying to care for the guy. She invited the two of them to dance. To her surprise, the guy refused. Today he already has a pair. The queen really did not like refusals. This always made her angry. Out of curiosity, she asked who his partner was for today. The guy said that he was just looking for a suitable occasion to introduce this girl. Approaching the door, he invited the guest to enter. It seems that the queen herself pushed him to take such a step. The guy brought his son and his mother into the hall. In front of everyone, the Duke announced that he was going to marry this girl. With a heavy heart and anguish in her soul, the queen stood in the middle of the hall. She realized that the love she had worked so hard to build had slipped from her grasp. Her gaze was full of melancholy and pain. The face expressed deep confusion. She felt lost and alone among the crowd of other people. The rejected ruler was tormented by thoughts, because everything she fought for is now just an echo in her broken heart. The Duke, along with his bride and child, stood in the middle of the hall. Mabel said he wasn't as confused as she expected, but the guy replied that he had no other choice. At that moment, the queen asked to open the gift in front of everyone, and the Duke knew exactly her intentions. He talked to her about this topic many times, but the ruler did not agree to leave him alone. Therefore, he had to do this for the sake of his beloved. Despite the fact that I had to go against the Empress, Mabel understood perfectly well and could not say anything against this. And no matter what, now Patrick needed to be taken away from prying eyes. But the boy asked to go to the party. His parents tried to calm him down, promising to take the baby to the next event. The guy called the servant to take the child. The devoted servant approached the owner and carried out his instructions, so that the boy would not worry. His parents waved after him. And so on until the servant brought him into the room. The Duke was very happy that his beloved was now next to him. He hugged her because he really missed the time when they were together. Now no matter what, they will soon get married. And their wedding will be impossible to cancel. The guy was incredibly happy about this outcome of events. He loved this girl very much even after she disappeared. The Duke's love has been tested by time. The girl had no doubt that he would always love her. That's what the Duke thought. But Mabel herself was tormented by doubts. She was worried that his feelings for her had changed. This was quite an important question. After all, her right to custody of Patrick was at stake, and she will not allow her emotions to control her. The hardest part was left to the young people. It was necessary to confirm to the guests that they were together again. Many considered the girl dead. Now she has appeared in public for the first time in a long time. The guests could not understand where the lady was hiding all the time. The moonlight gently hugged the earth, scattering silver rays. Stars, like diamonds, decorated the night sky, creating a magical picture. Mabel went out onto the balcony to enjoy the night views. She was very tired of such close attention to herself. It was hard for the girl to listen to the gossip of others. It seemed to her that the 2 hours at the party lasted forever. She had not attended social events for a very long time. That's why they bombarded her with questions. It's good that there were no relatives yet. Otherwise, the rumors would have spread to them. Someone said that she was great because she raised her child alone for 4 years. Others said she was hiding something. After all, she doesn't talk about the past. And having learned everything, the Duke certainly would not have married her. Various assumptions were heard long after its appearance. But the girl understood that she should not pay attention to these words. Suddenly she heard someone calling her. It was the Duke's sister. Mabel warmly greeted her old friend. Margot said that she heard about the girl moving in with them. She expressed her joy to the guests at this meeting. But still, the Duke's sister did not expect this meeting to be like this. The blonde regretted that she disappeared without warning anyone. Surely Margot was also alarmed by this. The girl asked if the queen had already given the order to show the child to all the aristocrats. Yes, this order has already been given. The heroine was worried that the queen would not harm Patrick. Therefore, she had no other choice. She didn't want the Duke's reputation to decline so rapidly. All these words surprised Margot. She thought about them seriously. This meant that the lady still loved her brother. The girl wanted to know if she understood this situation correctly, but Mabel began to make excuses. She said that she was doing this only for the sake of her son, and the marriage story is a guarantee that custody will be transferred to her. Nevertheless, the hostess was glad that a new person would live in their house. She was also pleased that the girl would become her daughter-in-law. She didn't know what happened between them in the past, but she hoped that her curiosity would not be a burden when visiting. The joyful groom approached the talking girls. His sister started asking him questions. After all, he didn't tell her about his plan. It turned out that the guy knew what he had done. The girl asked to warn him about such things next time. After all, she was very scared for him. But when the guy returned, his sister was very happy about it. Margot decided to leave the young couple, because she understood that her brother was not looking for her. The lovers watched the girl go, and they were left alone on the balcony in the middle of the night. They stood and looked at each other, trying to find the right words. The silence was broken by the girl's phrase. She asked the guy what happened. She thought he looked worried. The Duke said that he was simply worried about his beloved, and I wanted to know if everything was okay with her. The guy understood that the girl had not attended such events for a long time. And then there were people with such strange questions. But Mabel asked not to worry about her. The girl replied that she was having fun, but now she would like to rest. Against the backdrop of the night sky glowing with the moon, 2 lovers stood on the balcony. Their gazes intertwined like stars in the sky. But the time had come to say goodbye, and squeezing his lover's hand, the guy smiled as she left. The Duke had no more questions for his beloved. The guy called out to her and asked her to wait a little. He noticed the flower in the girl's hair. After that, she continued to her room. The guy was left alone on the balcony, his gaze falling on the dark garden below. Something mysterious flickered in the shadows. Suddenly, he made out a ghostly silhouette gliding between the trees. His heart beat faster. At that moment, he realized that the night was hiding much more than he could have imagined. He stood leaning on the railing and looked at the silhouette, lost in his thoughts. His eyes showed both joy and concern. The Duke knew that their happiness could be overshadowed by the impending danger. But she wasn't afraid. He believed in Mabel and their love. The fate of the lovers remained unknown. After all, the queen could not leave everything as it was. She already had a new plan for these two. However, will they be able to overcome all obstacles? And whether the guy wants to let his beloved go after a year, time will tell.